What's up, heathens? How ya doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologists' claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Barak Lurie, who claims to be addressing the dangers of atheism. Unfortunately, Barak seems to think that evolution is some kind of atheist talking point against Christianity. He doesn't seem to understand that atheism has literally nothing to do with evolution. Well, if you want to fuck around and find out the dangers of atheism as well as how evolution fails to explain simple things in our daily lives, then please stay tuned.
The atheist will argue that there is no God and everything can be explained by evolution. And yet they brush over these key elements that are part of our everyday lives.
Well, Barak, in general, atheists don't put forth the positive claim that there is no God. Some atheists do make that claim out there. They would be considered Gnostic atheists or hard atheists. But most of the atheists out there will maintain that they simply don't believe in a God. For me specifically, I claim that I don't know whether or not a God exists, but I don't believe that one does exist. And this is because, given the evidence that we have, I cannot conclude that a God definitely does exist. Oh, and another thing, we don't say that evolution can explain everything. That's a straw man argument that's commonly presented by creationists. Evolution would explain the diversity of life that we have here on Earth and everything surrounding that particular context, but that's about it. That, of course, is obviously not everything.
Hi, I'm Barak Lurie, and welcome to the Barak Lurie Show, where we discuss the dangers of atheism. But one of the most important things we need to do is to establish why atheism doesn't really work. It doesn't explain so many of the things that we take for granted.
Wait, dangers of atheism? What dangers does atheism pose? From what I can tell, the only danger that atheism poses is a danger to your religion. It renders fundamentalist creationist Christianity obsolete. So obviously you see it as a danger. Danger! Furthermore, I don't understand how atheism can't work. Atheism is just a description of someone not believing in a God. That is the only thing that atheism is supposed to explain. And it definitely works because there are people that don't believe in any deities. So tell me, beyond whether or not somebody believes in a deity or deities, what in the world is atheism supposed to explain?
Let's talk about the binary nature of atheism. What do I mean by that? I mean that either atheism is true in the sense that everything can be explained by evolution, or it's not true, and some creator created everything that we see around us. Okay? That's a fair binary statement.
No. That is not a fair binary statement. It's a false dichotomy that uses a straw man argument created by creationists. It's a false dichotomy because even if evolution didn't explain the diversity of life that we have on Earth, that doesn't automatically mean that God had to have created it. This fact is exacerbated by the use of a straw man argument as one of the options. Right now, you just look totally disingenuous, and I don't think that any audience anywhere should take you seriously.
Atheism means that everything that we see around us is thanks to a random order of things. Things just happened on their own, and were for any other situation by logic or probabilities, we wouldn't have what we have today. Or maybe it would look very differently. Who knows? But if that is the case, and it is the case under the atheistic worldview, then we have a problem for the atheist. How do we explain a whole bunch of things that cannot be explained by evolution? Things that we take for granted.
Well, the process of nature isn't as random as you might think. Nature operates uniformly and without the help of a supernatural wizard. This fact allows us to use science to describe our reality as accurately as we can. While things do appear to happen randomly, they always follow the laws of cause and effect. For the most part, what we experience in our daily lives. We could get into the whole quantum theory discussion and how effects can precede causes and all this other stuff, but for our normal everyday experience, nature follows the uniformity of cause and effect. So while it does seem random to us, it's not really all that random. But even if it was truly random, why is that a bad thing? It's already highly unlikely that our universe would come into existence in the first place, but that doesn't automatically mean that some conscious deity is required for this universe to come into existence. I do like in this section how you start off trying to say that this universe wouldn't exist, but then you quickly backtrack it with, oh, or it would just be different. Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's a 50-50 shot, so it doesn't help either of our positions. So why even bring it up? If the conditions for this universe were different, then just a different universe would pop into existence. It doesn't really matter if that universe would stick around for as long as our universe has, or if that universe was able to produce life. It's just the fact that the universe would be different, meaning that it would still come into existence, just in a different way. And there's nothing that we know of that precludes another universe from existing alongside ours. Atheism nor atheists have to explain anything in this reality other than state the fact that we don't believe in a God. So I'm kind of curious, exactly what things are you requiring us to explain?
For example, the notion of beauty. How do we appreciate beauty without a notion of God? There is no such thing as beauty to the typical animal out there. A polar bear doesn't appreciate beauty. We might like it, we might think it's amazing, the sunsets and such, but they never share a notion of beauty. Why would they? It's not necessary for their survival. Yet we understand that beauty is a thing.
Well, Barak, how do you know that they don't experience beauty? Beauty is a chemical reaction occurring in your brain to allow you to have that experience, so there's really nothing that precludes other animals from having that same experience. You act like you know exactly what's going on inside the brains of other animals, but you really don't. If you want a full refutation of all the arguments from beauty, I do have a pretty good video that you can already go and watch to see my response to those arguments. Ultimately, though, without a God, beauty would still be an experience that we can have. That experience is completely separated from the existence of God. But also, beauty could be a factor in the survival of a species. Where it really matters is in sexual selection. The more appealing, beautiful, or desirable organisms are, the more likely they are to propagate. So yes, beauty can definitely help a group of organisms survive. Also, why do you think that atheists are supposed to explain beauty? What part of, I don't believe in a God, screams, explain beauty to me?
Same thing with music. Animals don't have music, certainly not in the sense that we do. Yes, I understand birds chirp and such like that, but they do not have the notion of concocting a symphony together, for example. And yet, for each human, it is so ingrained in our DNA to love music. In fact, when we sometimes get to know each other, we might say, hey, what kind of music do you like? We don't ask, do you like music? We just ask what kind of music you might like. Everyone loves music. And we don't know why. From an evolutionary point of view, it's not necessary for our survival.
Well, music is a form of communication. It's all about expressing yourself, what you're feeling, your own personal experience to other people so that they can understand what you're going through or what you're feeling. It creates bonds between people and can help bring them together. You're seriously telling me something that does this is not beneficial to a social species like ours? Just like beauty, music is a personal preference. Most people like music, but that doesn't mean that everybody likes music. It would be a hasty generalization to say that everybody loves music and it's ingrained in our DNA. But even if it were ingrained in our DNA, do you know how it got ingrained in our DNA? Evolution. Finally, how exactly do you figure that atheists need to be able to explain this? I mean, maybe science is required to explain why music is beneficial to the evolution and survival of our species, but that's not a task for atheists. In order to be an atheist, all you're required to do is not believe in a deity or deities. That's it.
Same thing with humor. Everyone tells a joke every once in a while. We love a good joke, but you never see animals laughing at each other. Yes, they play sometimes, but that's not the same thing as humor in the way that we understand it. Nobody survives merely because they have a sense of humor, right? Sometimes we think it's necessary, yes, but for your actual survival as a human being, for that matter, any animal whatsoever, they don't need humor. Humor is not essential. It cannot be explained by evolution.
Again, humor is just another way that people can connect with each other. It helps us communicate with each other and helps us form relationships with one another. So you're telling me that humor is not beneficial to a social species that's been able to thrive better than the rest of life on Earth through surviving in larger and larger groups? Do you even hear what you're saying right now, or do you just open your mouth and crap falls out? Humor is definitely integral to the survival of our species. It's ridiculous to claim that close personal relationships formed between individuals in a society do not benefit that society and allow it to thrive and survive. But again, I must point out that this is also not something that atheists need to explain. This is a job for science, and science should be irreligious.
For that matter, there are other issues. For example, free will and freedom. Our notion of free will and freedom is unique to the human animal. For a lot of animals, they don't have the same notion of freedom that we do. Yes, they might want to roam around, but it's not the same thing as freedom, as you and I understand it, the ability to express ourselves.
Well, when you say free will, you mean complete free will. I don't really think that that exists. I think that there is a faux free will that's more like just a freedom of choice. This comes with a higher functioning central nervous system. In the exact same sense, dogs also have free will. They have the ability to make decisions and they can reflect on the consequences of those decisions. The ability to make decisions freely does not require a god. With or without a god, we can still make our own decisions because the chemical processes that occur in our brain that allow for this decision-making process do not require a supernatural wizard to work. They operate based on the laws of physics and chemistry. They do not need God, so therefore they are a completely separate entity from God. And yet again, this has nothing to do with atheists, and it has everything to do with the creationist bias towards science.
Finally, the notion of a story. We humans are unique in that notion. Everyone loves a story. No, nobody has ever said, you might like stories, but I'm not the story kind of guy. Nobody. We all need stories. We all love stories. But that is a uniquely human characteristic, and evolution cannot explain it. It will not be necessary for our survival. And yet, the atheist will argue that there is no God, and everything can be explained by evolution.
Just like with beauty, music, and humor, the ability to tell a story is essential to our survival. Telling stories is a type of communication and are used to build relationships between people. Individuals within a social species should be able to form these close personal bonds with other individuals of the same group. This is major to survival because that is the only way that these social species can actually grow larger and larger and form societies like we have done. Not only all of that, but storytelling is also integral to instruction. Using a story to teach your fellow apes a skill or a moral value is an exceptional educational tool. So you're just wrong that storytelling doesn't aid our survival, but also atheists are not required to explain why storytelling is essential to our survival. Atheists are only required to state that they don't believe in a deity or deities.
And yet they brush over these key elements that are part of our everyday lives. Humor, telling stories, free will, beauty, and music. They love all those things, and yet they can't explain it. This is yet another example of all the indicia that we have that God is real. And God is not only real, but He is necessary for our functioning as human beings in a civilizational way. I'm Barak Lurie. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you next week.
We don't brush over these elements. We simply aren't required to explain those things to you. The only subject that we're quote-unquote required to explain to you is the fact that we don't believe in a deity or deities. But, science can explain why those particular subjects are very integral to the survival of our species. Science is irreligious though, so it really doesn't matter if you're part of a religion or not. You just simply have not proven God in any kind of sense. If you have a natural explanation for some event happening, then we do not need a supernatural explanation for that same event. All in all, I found these arguments to just be a field of straw man that this creationist has created in order to knock down and reassure his Christian audience that atheism is indeed dangerous. Everything that has been claimed in this video as being unexplainable has been perfectly explained by science. This was just an all-around unimpressive video, and Barak has more. So we're gonna keep following Barak and see where he goes with this atheism is dangerous thing. I hope that you'll join me in the future for more episodes responding to Barak Lurie. That's gonna be our video today. If you will, please go down below. Let me know what you think about this guy's video today. Do you agree with him, or do you think that atheism isn't dangerous at all except to fundamentalist creationist Christianity? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And hey, while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of video. And as always, don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.